Together. There we are. The stream is live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talking About Survivor. I'm Christiana Ellis.
I'm Mike McKean.
And tonight we are talking about Survivor Winners at War episode. Hang on. Sorry, there we go. I'm trying to do too many things at once. Winners at War, episode 10, The Full Circle. And I don't know about you, but like this episode was just like a soothing balm this week for me. I just I didn't know I needed it, but I did, and fortunately it was able to provide. Just spending so much time on the family stuff and just having all that stuff be so good, it made me happy this week.
Yep. Yeah, no, I 100% agree. It was because it was kind of like one of those things, it's just, and everybody kind of knows what we're all going through, but, everybody always asks, like, hey, what's the first thing you're going to do when you were safely out of quarantine, and that's one that I've kind of realized is, like, I want to go, like, hug my family and friends, so, so this was nice, yeah.
Yeah. And just, especially for a show that really kind of defines itself as an expression of, depriving people of things, right? And having, people have to overcome that. To have an episode where they just kind of say, no, it's okay. You can have it.
Yep.
It just felt really nice. Even though we're not the ones out there having to go through lack of food and missing, I guess, we might be missing our families, not quite in the same way that they are on the show. It's different.
Yeah, but, you can connect with them and stuff, but yeah, it is different. Yeah.
But yeah, it felt nice to have people be nice and have nice things happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there was the extra layer. I mean, obviously, we'll talk. Again, about how they gave it to both. To not just, first of all, to everyone. Not winners, and also to the Redemption Island or the whatever. Yeah.
Edge of Extinction.
Yeah, Edge of Extinction people, and the other layer of it wasn't just one selected loved one. It was their entire family.
Yeah.
Which I read somewhere. I think that was actually a condition that Tyson requested as part of his participation. Was that if he made it to this part that he wanted all of his kids to be able to come. And so they went and said, okay, well, if we're going to do that for him, like, let's just do that. Then we'll make it. And that kind of prompted the brainstorm that led to them knowing they were going to do it like this, which, of course, they didn't realize the situation that everyone would be in when they were watching it. But it made it feel really,
well, and especially, and the season being this all-winners season, Winners at War, number 40, having it feel big in that way was just, it felt like you could get away with it, and it didn't feel like cheap or there wasn't anything about trying to I don't know, like, I guess it just felt justified is what I mean. It felt merited.
It all kind of clicked together. It felt justified. It felt right. Like I said, they wouldn't have known that it was going to air at this time, but it didn't. I think that almost makes it even more powerful in that that we know that they didn't do it to try to make us feel better right now. Like, they did it because they thought it was the right thing to do, and it just happened that it worked out, that it aired at a time when people wanted to see that. So,
just as a brief tangent, especially with so many shows and movies either getting their premieres delayed or having to shut down production altogether. Certainly anything that was in a filming stage is having a hard time. Like a lot of pre-development and writing obviously can still happen, but this is, it'll be interesting to see what effect that has on the entertainment landscape going forward. Not just in the matter of there'll be kind of a gap where, the frequency of new things coming out might slow, but also just how do people start telling stories about this? Because you almost kind of have to, right? I mean, I guess some shows, if they're in a different time period or something, wouldn't have to touch it. But, you know, like, if you have just a sitcom, just an ordinary 3-camera sitcom, do you just ignore it? That seems, I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we kind of know how the medical shows are going to do, like the doctor dramas. Those, of course, are going to touch on this, and
Mm-hmm.
they'll feel like, post-Vietnam War movies in a way. And then, yeah, you're right. Like, what do you do, or not even just a sitcom, but like even just a normal drama, like what are the more popular ones, like This Is Us or something like that, which,
Mm-hmm.
how long do you spend on it? Like because you don't really want to draw it out if people are not, people are trying to come back to life, like to the, get back to life. Like you don't want to dwell on it,
Mm-hmm.
but like I said, you just ignore it and pretend and just go along with your normal narrative that you had already written. Like
Yeah.
that might feel weird too.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, I mean, I imagine we'll get 9 versions of the romantic comedy of people who met during this time, electronically, and how did they date and meet each other. Because I actually have a friend who's doing that. He's met a girl right when this started, and so now they have like socially distant dates where they'll like go to a park, like a big wide open space, and like sit in a field like 10 feet apart and just like talk to each other and like eat a snack, But there'll be a dating movie about that,
Yeah.
And then there'll be one where people started dating before, and then how did they continue, and
Mm-hmm.
how did this disrupt it, and what happened? And then you'll have the negative ones of, testing marriages. I mean, we just had Marriage Story. I mean, could you imagine if Marriage Story was written?
Or even darker than that, the idea of people stuck in abusive situations. Like there's a lot of potential there, but it's going to be a very tricky subject for a long time. But we'll have to see. I'm sure there'll be lots of different takes on that.
Right.
But
And what will people's appetite for it be?
yeah.
Will they want to watch a bunch of stuff kind of reflecting back on this, or are they going to want to move on?
Mm-hmm. So, in any case, though, we'll have to see when the next season of Survivor happens, because we already know that the next season to air, the production was delayed. But I guess while we have this season, it's all the more nice to enjoy these moments when we get them, to kind of rope us back on topic a little bit. I know it was my fault to begin with, but yeah. So let's just jump right in. What was your favorite moment from this episode?
I mean, it's obvious, but my favorite moment is that the whole extended loved one sequence that we just discussed, and the fact that it felt good, it felt real, it was nice. Not only just the things that we talked about, but like it was nice to see them interacting with each other and letting their guard down, and their kids playing together, and like it was just something really nice about the whole, how everybody could kind of put pause on the game for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that I mean had to be my favorite moment. I mean,
Yeah.
and it was like half hour of the episode too, So yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually going to mention the biggest surprise and favorite moment kind of together, because they dovetail in a way that will be obvious in a moment. The biggest surprise for me, I think, was that. Sorry, I'm distracted by my audio settings are Or, yeah, I see what's happening. One moment.
Okay.
Uh, Apologies, everyone. There we there we go. You still hear me, I assume?
Yep.
Good. So the favorite moment was, rather, I'll mention biggest surprise first because that's kind of the issue. Biggest surprise was that the Edge of Extinction folks got to have the family visit also. Like that, it's one thing to already. It was on top of already being surprised by. Why is my camera going crazy? Already being surprised by everybody in the main game getting their family visit and not having to compete for it. Um, but then also, we're cutting over to Edge of Extinction, and here I am thinking, oh, but like everybody else got it, but not the Edge of Extinction folks. And then it turns out they do too, and that was my biggest surprise. And so my that dovetails into my favorite moment, which was actually the very end, when everyone on the jury after the tribal council just goes over and hugs Probst to
Yeah.
thank him. It's like, oh man, that's so thank you. And it was just such a nice, happy moment that, just capped off an episode full of many happy moments.
Yeah, that was really good.
Mm-hmm.
So I was originally, when I was watching it, going to have that as my biggest surprise.
Mm-hmm.
However, I was like, well, if I'm going to make that my favorite moment too, like you did, I mean, you tied them together. But I decided to come up with another biggest surprise because I think for me, it was equally surprising, is when it all went down in tribal council and they even had time to discuss it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand the way they laid out the votes. Like, why didn't they split them? Like, they put it in a way where,
Well, I mean, they it. So I'm looking at the votes now, right?
right,
So we
they put
had
5 on Tyson when they only needed to put 3, I think.
yeah. So there were 2 votes for Sophie
Mm-hmm.
from Tyson and Kim. So they're the minority that right?
Yeah.
But I think what happened is that there was supposed to be this there was supposed to be this whole setup with you have 5 and 5, except that when Jeremy leaves, it makes it 5 and 4, and then Sarah uses the steal a vote, which makes it 6 versus 3, right? And
Right.
so,
So wouldn't you vote 3-3-3? I mean,
well,
the,
I think that's maybe the gamble that, like, if they other 3 all vote for um so like if an idol is played, then it's a 3-3 tie, and then I
then we'll
guess
go to a revote.
yeah, and I suppose that could work, but it was also chaotic that I think they may have just figured that they could guess it, they thought they could just do it. And they
Then why
didn't
didn't
want
they
to.
make it unanimous?
Well, because I think they were confused.
But see, that's why I was surprised is that they specifically went off as a group to discuss what they were going to do,
Mm-hmm.
and that they came up with splitting it because I think they split it 4-2. They just happened to get 5 votes on Tyson because Michelle also voted, even though she was in the minority. She voted for Tyson also,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm not looking at it right now.
Yes, Michelle did vote for Tyson.
Right. So I guess I don't understand why you would split it to 4-2 because if all 3 of them had voted for Sophie and Tyson had had an idol for some reason,
Mm-hmm.
then Sophie would have gone home.
Yeah, I'm not saying they did a good job.
Right, but that's what I was saying. I'm surprised that when they specifically that like normally I wouldn't say this was a big surprise. My surprise is they specifically went off as a group of 5 to plan what they were going to do, and then came up with not a good plan. That's the
No, well,
surprise.
okay. My point is, I don't think that this was their plan. I think they didn't ever actually solidify a plan where everyone was on the same page. Because you're right, this plan does not make sense. So,
Okay, well, like, let's say you're 100% right. That is still my biggest surprise that they couldn't come up with a plan when they all
yeah,
went and met privately at tribal council.
right. Well, and so I think that it was that someone was supposed to vote for Denise and voted for Tyson instead. I mean, that's the only thing that makes sense.
Right. So coming
Um,
back to it, my biggest surprise is this didn't make sense, I guess. And so the whole thing that we're even arguing about is why I was surprised, is I just didn't understand how it even got to this when, because I was so, I really liked what Sophie did,
mm-hmm,
which was say, you know what, like, fuck the pretense. There are 5 of us. We know that. Everyone knows that. That's why Jeremy left.
mm-hmm.
Let's go talk about it. you
Yeah.
know?
I
And
want.
then it to not come to, I mean, it obviously worked because they got Tyson out,
Mm-hmm,
but it had an opportunity where it couldn't have, and it was just weird to me. Like, it was just surprising to me that with all of that, even as chaotic as it was, when they took the time to do something which I really liked and was, considering as an MVP moment for her, except that the problem is she's now kind of coming out from behind the shadows, and
mm-hmm.
people are starting to realize how good she actually is. Um, and things like this are going to just keep highlighting that, where she was able to just drop that pretense and get them, to at least talk about it. So
Mm-hmm.
anyway,
Well,
that's
so
what surprised me. Yeah.
I see, like, so I wonder if maybe someone didn't trust Sarah and her whole steal a vote thing. Because I don't know. I mean, it's
You're right, because
weird.
that's key to it.
Yeah, well, and it's also weird that the plan would be that Sarah's steal a vote would have her split her own votes. Like, why is that the plan? If you're saying as a group, we're trying to get 3 votes on one and 3 votes for another, and Sarah's going to represent 2 of these 6 votes, and we're going to have her do one for one person and the other for another person.
Right, when all you would have to do is say, okay, Sarah, both your votes go to Denise, and Sophie will also vote for Denise, and then everybody
Mm-hmm.
else vote for Tyson.
Right.
Like, that would have been much simpler. You're right.
So my guess is they're talking through it and they got confused about who was supposed to do what. Or
That's fair.
maybe someone didn't trust Sarah. Now, I'm just saying that you're right that as a plan, it doesn't actually seem to make sense because it worked for Tyson, but had the potential downside of Sophie being vulnerable if the idol had been played for Tyson instead of Denise.
Right.
Um,
Which was also a surprise, I guess. And when things are that chaotic, just play it for yourself.
yeah.
Like, like, I don't try to guess at that point.
Well,
And I know it worked out, but
Yeah, I agree, except that what it came down to is they were splitting votes between Tyson and Denise,
mm-hmm.
right? And so I think if Kim was accurately reading that situation and was just trying to guess which one might get more, she was hoping to save one or the other, So if she was pretty sure it wasn't her, and it wasn't that chaotic, it was only a question of will it be Tyson or will it be Denise.
Okay, fair. Yeah, I'll give that to you.
I mean,
Yeah,
it
I agree
certainly
with you
felt
on that.
it certainly felt very chaotic to us, but I think that um, that's why I think Kim did that. Is that I think she just recognized, um, they're over there talking about, okay, you vote for Denise, you vote for Tyson, like maybe they kind of just got that, and it's kind of a question of like, okay, well, if you don't pick up the whole thing, you just hear those 2 names mentioned.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, but the other element, of course, though, is that it's kind of extra chaotic because Jeremy might well have been the target, except that he used his whole, immunity without power thing.
Right. So I have to guess that because it got so chaotic after he left,
Mm-hmm.
that he was the target. They didn't confirm that,
Mm-hmm.
but if it was anything else, it wouldn't have mattered. They would have just, okay, cool, Jeremy, see
Mm-hmm.
you back at camp, and they would have moved on.
Yeah.
But because they didn't know what to do when that happened, is what sent them spinning.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, he's going to be in a weird spot.
Yeah.
I know he had to do it, but and this is why this was such a cool thing is because of like how is his people who he was aligned with are gonna they may need to come back to him because of the numbers thing, but they're certainly not going to be happy with him,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and so it's it's definitely going to hurt him with the jury, you know.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like this is an all winners season. I think the jury is going to be much more
Okay,
sympathetic to arguments of, I was going to get voted out, so I did what I needed to do.
right. I didn't choose this advantage. This is what I was. This is what I had,
Right.
and this is when I had to use it. And I'm fortunate I used it accurately.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
how stupid would I have felt if I didn't use it and they voted me out?
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah.
You're right, though, absolutely, that it still leaves him in a tricky spot because he still has people who wanted him gone. And
And then
now
throwing in
even
the
his
jury.
allies will feel like he abandoned them and are going to be less inclined to want to protect him.
Right. The one thing that he does have going for him when they come back is what we've seen time and time again in this season is that they aren't looking to whip the easy vote.
Mm-hmm.
They have tried a couple times, but no one really has the appetite to want that to be the default.
Yeah.
And so that would be easy in a normal season. He would be an easy vote next time.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, look, we already wanted him gone. You guys don't trust him. Let's just all get rid of him.
Yeah.
And then everybody can do that. These guys are too good and thinking too far ahead for that to happen, and that is probably actually going to work in his favor in a weird way.
Mm-hmm. So it was interesting that just going from the last couple of weeks to here, we had talked about Tyson managing to come back and no one really talking about him as a target to go now to him being the one voted out. But of course, he wasn't the first target, right? People were gonna, even some of Jeremy's own initial allies were saying time to blindside him, and it really just kind of came together as this 5-on-5 dividing line. But there's so many different suggestions of names this time, right? I think Tony's name might have come up more if he hadn't actually won the challenge. Um, Jeremy is in this boat that we warned about a little bit last time, which is that, he's wanting to break up Sarah and Sophie, except, no one wants to listen to him. And he's in that spot of I don't want to be the one calling the shots, except that everyone keeps making the wrong decisions. So I feel like I have to push because they're doing it wrong. But then you've got Sarah who wants Kim gone. There's discussion of Kim trying to get Sophie out. It's there's lots of names being thrown out, right? And then of course Tyson. I don't feel like people were really even talking about voting for Tyson right up until when it happened.
Well, yeah, I think because they had clearly determined that Jeremy was the biggest threat there.
Mm-hmm.
And when that all got thrown into upheaval, now again, you're trying to, it's not just that he's the next biggest threat, I think. It's that he would be the least likely for someone to go out on a limb and give an idol to. I think was probably part of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Is if there's an idol out there, he probably doesn't have it because he hasn't been around long enough.
Yeah.
Probably not one that someone's going to give one to,
Yeah.
unless they're sure.
Mm-hmm.
and we haven't been talking about him, so you know, it would be more of a surprise. I could see that because I have to give them there's no way, like you said, that it wasn't a great plan, but there's no way they didn't think through stuff. I mean, they're all really good at this game.
Mm-hmm.
And that seems to be the most natural reason it landed on him, is that least likely to have an idol, also a big threat, and least likely to have a relationship that would have somebody protect him.
Yeah. And yeah, so I mean, I wonder if there were some conversations where his name got tossed out just along that montage where so many other names were mentioned they just didn't include because, they were coming around to the end. Or is it possible that, we talked about this idea of who is whose shield with Jeremy and Tyson before, right?
Yeah.
So maybe that
Jeremy
was the
was
whole
the shield,
thing is that,
and the shield went away.
yeah. So, Tyson was effectively using Jeremy as the shield, but then the shield had an ability to say, "Nope, I'm sitting this one out." Yeah, so we'll see. But yeah, so that there was definitely some chaos there. I will say that although certainly these chaotic tribal councils, like where everyone's whispering and everything, like there's a degree of excitement to that, but I feel like the novelty's wearing off a little bit, and I almost like I'm kind of almost nostalgic for the days where everyone had to figure it out ahead of time and couldn't just change up the plan on the fly.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's part of why Sophie's move resonated so well with me, because it was just like, let's cut through the bullshit, guys. Like, drop the pretense. Like, why are we whispering around? Like, we know the five of us want to do the same thing. Like, let's just walk back here and do it. Like, I mean, it's different from what you're saying in the nostalgia, but it's born out of the same thing of like, I'm tired of that being a thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. It was exciting. It's not that much now. And so I liked her at least changing it.
Mm-hmm.
And saying, let's not run through these dynamics, guys. Like,
Yeah.
let's just
but in some ways, what it feels a little bit like is once it's established in a puzzle challenge that there are no rules against looking at the other person's puzzle, it feels a little bit like someone just very blatantly looking at it and saying they're doing this, they're doing this, they're doing this. And it's established as like, well, it's not against the rules, but it feels a little bit against the spirit of it. And I'm not criticizing Sophie so much as I just feel like the trend of tribal councils is starting to go a little bit in a direction that I wish it would course correct a bit.
Well, and that's what I'm hoping this maybe could help do, is course correct it by just saying, by her like kind of evaporating that, like, oh, I'm going to talk to you, I'm going to talk to you, I'm going to talk to you. It's like, no, we're not doing that. Like, we're the five that decided together. We're going to go decide together again. That maybe it kind of takes the wind out of this as a thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm hoping. I don't know, but that's where I was giving the credit to her for. Was like, let's, for the same reason, like, let's course correct this. Like, this is stupid. We all agreed on something that got taken away, so let's just all go agree again, as opposed to this. And then all of a sudden that doesn't make any sense anymore if there's an agreement of what you're supposed to do,
Yeah. Anyway. So, MVP. Are you thinking Sophie still, or for just cutting through the red tape there?
Yeah, I think I've landed back on her. I'm not going to go. The only thing that was making me hesitant about calling her the MVP is again, she was the one the other group decided to vote for. Like, she has, like I said, I think I used the exact same expression earlier. She's kind of come from behind the curtain, and people are starting to realize that she is a lot better at this than I think they were giving her credit for. Like, they were treating her not like Michelle, someone who kind of stumbled into a win, but not like a Kim, who was kind of a badass, and just kind of had that, and Parvati and like that. Like she wasn't on that echelon, but people forgot again just because of how her personality is and how she maneuvers.
Hmm.
Like she feels just not threatening, but she is so good at
Yeah.
kind of making everything happen, like maneuvering all the pieces without feeling threatening. I mean, it is actually it's been a lot of fun to watch this whole season, and it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
and
yeah. I still thought she was going to MVP, but it's starting to get recognized, which of course is going to be the hard part for her now. Yeah.
well, right, and it's that dilemma of it has to happen for someone to win. They have to start doing things that will justify a win, but that attracts attention. And so I think you're right that she's kind of in that stage now where she's been drafting behind the leaders for a while, um, you know, saving her energy, and now she's going to try to start pulling ahead, but people are going to notice.
Well, I think it's all. I mean, I'm almost thought of it more like the Shield thing, in that
Hmm.
it's not like she was really drafting. I mean, she was maneuvering a lot of these moves.
Yeah.
She just wasn't. There were people who were being targeted that weren't her because they were bigger personalities, not necessarily that they were doing more in the game.
Hmm.
And now those people are starting to be fewer and far between. Her contributions to how this is working are becoming more and more evident. You
Fair.
know,
I was not necessarily thinking of it like she wasn't doing anything, and more just a matter of um, she wasn't calling attention to herself.
right? Okay, yeah. So sorry when you said drafting, I
No,
took
no,
that
no.
as
That's fine.
yeah.
That's fine. But I think my vote for MVP is going to be for Tony. We haven't talked a lot about him, but I did like him winning that challenge, which is a difficult challenge. Good for him.
And his first one.
Yeah, yeah. And so that's lots of fun. I also just like watching him on TV. And it was him that was like, so we're going to blindside Jeremy, right? Everyone on board for that? And I'm like, yeah, there you go. So
Yeah.
you know, I think that was the right call. Obviously, it didn't work out, but
Right.
not.
So yeah, but I was gonna say like part of the reason I didn't my second choice for MVP if I had gone away from Sophie was going to be Tony,
Oh yeah.
but I didn't want to steal that from because I assumed that was going to be yours, so I didn't
Oh
want to
okay.
like say, oh, well, I chose Sophie, but I would have. I was thinking about Tony, and here's all why, and then be like, yeah, I agree with Tony. So. But I agree with you that yes, he also did a very very good job,
Hmm.
in particular with that, and he is a lot of fun to watch. Like,
Hmm. Yeah. Well, and like I mean, I certainly agree with you about Sophie as well. So we're on the same page there, I think, or front and back of the same page.
yeah,
um, so, and then as far as what went wrong, I honestly don't know that Tyson really did anything wrong. It was just, the plan fell apart for reasons that were not his doing. Um,
yeah. What went wrong for him is that Jeremy had the correct instinct
hmm.
that it was very likely to be him, and removed himself from the situation via his
Yeah.
advantage. Then
And
and
it
then
happened.
Kim
Yeah.
choosing Denise again. I think she was trying to pick between them, but it's all. I think there was a little bit of bias as to which one she was
Could
going
be.
for because I think she would rather have Denise around. So it's like I hope I did this right, but I also hope that Denise is still around. So I'm going to
Hmm.
do this, like so that no
Well,
matter what, Denise is still around.
it
Yeah,
might have been a situation where they're thinking, um, where Kim is thinking, if they're going to split their votes 3-3, it is essentially the person I play the idol for that stays.
right. Because then when they go to revote, that person remains safe.
Hmm.
Yeah,
So that might have been part of the rationale there
yeah.
too. But yeah, I mean, I think,
Every
and
every piece of that was outside of Tyson's control, though.
right, and again, all of that happened so fast, like that he wouldn't have had time to come up with some other plan. Like he could have been slightly more relaxed just on the basis that like he doesn't want Jeremy to go, but he figures like, well, but I'm not the main target. But you know, Jeremy deciding in the moment to play that correctly, there was no time to really do anything. So, alas, poor Tyson, back to edge of extinction for you.
Yes.
All right. So, any last advice for any of the players before next time?
I don't. I mean, at this point, I don't think so. I mean, we we know kind of where everybody's lying now. Like, there's not lying, like
Yeah.
not telling mistruths, but like kind of they started to it started to be laid bare like what everybody's skill set is.
Hmm.
You know, so as am I freezing?
Yeah, you were for a moment. You were about to say Sophie's skills.
So yeah, so Sophie, people are starting to recognize Sophie's skill set. You know, Kim kind of has, people understand where her threats are. Denise has been re-identified as a threatening person. Like, and the threats are accurate. So it's like it's hard to like pull that back. So I think the advice is, how do you lean in to your skill set and use it correctly? Because you're not hiding anymore. Like, everybody's kind of figured everybody out. Everybody knows what Tony's doing. Everybody knows what you're doing. So how do you use that based on how the dynamics kind of come to pass?
Right.
Which we can't predict. I can't give them advice knowing, because I don't know what is going to happen. So
Yeah. So yeah, I feel like I don't know. I know. um, I'm just trying to think who I can really advise here, because I sort of feel like I don't think anyone's really playing badly right now. Everyone's
um,
kind of got their own different hand to play, so to speak, but no one's really doing anything obviously wrong. Everyone's just kind of doing their best to try to build a strategy around all the minefield of potential twists that might come up. Um, yeah, so
yeah,
I'll just sort of my final thought of the episode is actually Tyson flipping off all of the fire token containers.
that was funny.
Yeah, so I think that'll probably do it for this week,
Perfect.
and we'll be back next week for more Survivor. So, try to survive until then. Gosh, that
Absolutely.
starts. It's increasingly feeling in bad taste to say that, and we should say something else. Take care of each other until then.
Yes.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.